Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, we are ready for the event.
Fox News Digital, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Matt Leach. How do you hear me?
We've got you loud and clear. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Thank you. It's a privilege to speak to you both. Thank you for taking the time. I'll start with my first question. You both traveled to the ISS on a SpaceX rocket. How has space travel changed from your perspective since the introduction of commercial spaceflight?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So, as you know, in the past, it was mostly just government entities. And now, as you said, we have the commercial sector building and flying rockets on their own. I personally think it's really advantageous because there are strengths and weaknesses for both NASA and the government and a commercial entity such as SpaceX. And I think they fill each other's gaps and kind of enhance each other's strengths in a very helpful way.
And we also we see a lot more opportunities where, you know, in the beginning, perhaps it was millionaires coming up here, but now we start to see a lot of government astronauts from smaller countries that don't necessarily have a well-established space agency. They're able to take advantage of these commercial flights and join us on the International Space Station to conduct their own research and technology programs. And I think that's a very positive development in the sense that we see a lot of people from new nations joining us up here on the International Space Station.
Thank you. My next question is for both of you. The phrase "the right stuff" used in literature and movies has been used to describe the qualities needed to become an astronaut. What is your definition of the right stuff? And do you think that it is different now than it was in decades past?
Yeah, to some extent, I think definitely the right stuff has changed somewhat. In the beginning, spaceflight was very, very experimental, and typically it was characterized by short, high-risk flights. Today, we see much longer duration missions on board the space station, which means that interpersonal skills play a much bigger factor in the selection of astronauts. We have to be able to work together successfully for 6 months, sometimes up to a year at a time on board the International Space Station. And so I think there's a lot more focus on teamwork, on communication skills, and just in general what we might call interpersonal skills.
Yeah, I second everything Andy just said. It's definitely, I think, changed over time, and that aspect of it, the teamwork aspect of it, and being willing to compromise. You know, we're living and working up here for about 6 months together is really important. And you have to be a bit of a jack of all trades nowadays. Here on station, if something breaks, we're the ones to fix it. If someone's not feeling well, we're the ones to take care of them. We're performing science. That's the main objective of the International Space Station. So you have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, but those interpersonal skills are really what defines the right stuff, I think.
Great. My next question is for both of you. The world has been glued to social media and TV, watching the events play out in Israel and Gaza in real time over the last week. How do you process an event like that from your perspective, being on the International Space Station?
You know, that's a really good question. I think one of the things we experience up here is a different perspective of the world, of our planet. A lot of people call it the overview effect. We see the Earth as a single planet that we all share together. You don't see borders between countries, and so you get an idea that perhaps borders are something artificial. There's not often a good reason why a border exists where it is. And because you see or experience the planet as a whole, you realize we're all humans living side by side. And perhaps if we could learn to cooperate a little bit better, to learn to live peacefully side by side, many of our problems, many of our challenges in daily life would disappear, because many of them are self-created, unfortunately.
And in addition to seeing our Earth from the very unique vantage point that we have, we also have a very international crew up here. Andy is from Denmark, myself and Laurel are from the United States, Satoshi from Japan, and we have 3 Russian cosmonauts, and we all live and work together as a crew, and you just realize that really there's much more that unifies us, and we have much more alike than we have different.
Thank you. The next question is for Jasmine. As a member of the Artemis team, what role do you play specifically in sending astronauts back to the moon, and how will your current mission advance that project?
Yes, so I worked on the human landing system quite a bit before being assigned to this mission. And in terms of what will contribute here on ISS to the HLS and the Artemis missions, as well as even going further, after the moon onto Mars, a lot of the human research ties in directly, specifically when you the Artemis missions, and especially the ones landing on the moon, are a bit different than the Apollo missions were in the past. We're going to be, the travel there will take a bit longer, and that will prepare us to operationally understand how we need to operate when we go on a several months long mission to Mars, and what's our state when we land. Are we ready to perform spacewalks right away? Are we able, is our vestibular system good to land the spacecraft on the surface of the moon or of Mars? And so a lot of the studies we're doing now, for example, the CIPHER study that's going on, they took some data before we launched on how we operate in a suit. And then right after landing, basically, they'll be taking data to see how we do at that point. So I think a lot of that carries over.
Great. And Andreas, my next question is for you. 6 months on the space station is a long time. How do you prepare for this type of mission? And also, what type of things do you have to do to mentally prepare for a situation that could potentially impact you, like Frank Rubio's did, where he ended up on the station twice as long as he thought he would?
Yeah, I think the key is to be adaptable and flexible. You never know what will happen up here. You mentioned Frank Rubio. That obviously is an extreme case, having your mission extended to a whole year. But even, we have had some unexpected challenges in the last couple of weeks. We were planning to do 2 spacewalks that have been rescheduled for a later time because of a coolant leak. And so there are always these unexpected challenges, but we work together with a fantastic team at Mission Control in Houston that are able to respond and help us overcome any challenges. And for us, it's all about being adaptable and flexible, which also is a big part of our training. Jasmine mentioned it earlier, being a jack of all trades, and that's certainly something that we have to be able to be up here for 6 months, because you never know what situation is going to develop and what you need to fix or to work on.
Great. Thank you both.
Station. This is Houston ACR. That concludes the Fox News digital portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from Yahoo News.
Station, this is Rebecca Corey. How do you hear me?
We got you loud and clear. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Great. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, both of you. I'm a health reporter for Yahoo News, so I'm really interested in the physical changes that happen to your body when you spend a long time in space. So for both of you, what have you personally found to be the biggest health challenge while in space so far?
I don't know if I would say there's any significant health challenge. One of the things I've felt for the month and a half that I've been up here is just a general stuffiness that comes from the increased blood volume to the heads. You just kind of feel a little bit congested constantly. But apart from that, I don't think there are any significant health things that I've noticed.
Yeah, and I've been pretty lucky. I thankfully haven't experienced the stuffiness that Andy and several others experience up here. I would agree. In general, I'd say I feel my body recovers a lot faster up here. One thing I will say is I definitely feel the need. You know, we're scheduled to work out 2.5 hours a day, and I do feel the need and the want to do that because we're not using our muscles regularly as we would back on Earth.
And for Jasmine, hundreds of men have flown in space, but there's still only a few dozen women who have been selected to do so. So what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about women and their ability to complete a space flight? And how do you think or hope your mission in space can help change that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Rebecca. I think this is slowly changing over time, but we've lived in a world where the standard is often men, and then anything else is a deviation from that. And, over time, we've done a better job of adapting. But I think we've seen now multiple times women come up here. Myself and Laurel are up here right now. And there are, first off, each individual has their own strengths and weaknesses. It's not just men and women. But when you start to even generalize, there are certain characteristics about women you could say are advantageous, more advantageous for space. And you could do the same for certain characteristics that are more characteristic of men. But I think ultimately, I'm just hoping people, as they see more women up here, especially the next generation, it's easy to connect and relate to someone that in some way looks like you, or you feel some connection to that person. And I hope they just realize that they can do this as well, and we just continue to build that.
And for both of you, being on the International Space Station, it's such a confined, isolated space. And to be there for months at a time seems like it would present a lot of mental health challenges as well. So what do you both do up there to keep mentally and emotionally fit while in space?
I don't think we really feel any challenges when it comes to our mental health. And maybe it's because of the time we've spent training on Earth together as a crew. We spent the last year and a half. Maybe it's the professionalism, the selection of astronauts. Maybe it's the fact that being up here really is an incredible experience. I mean, I think we all feel incredibly fortunate to be up here. We enjoy each other's company. The work that we do is interesting. We have an opportunity to look down at our beautiful planet in the evenings and in our free time. And so all in all, it's just an incredible experience. But of course, we are away from our families and our friends, for long periods of time. But we have good opportunities to stay in contact with them through various communication means. So it's I wouldn't say it's not as challenging as a lot of people believe it to be.
Yeah, and I second what Andy said. Maybe we're just lucky and we got a great crew, but we all get along really well, and so that makes the part of not just working together but also living together a lot of fun. And as Andy mentioned, this is an absolute once in a lifetime experience. And for me personally, one of the most challenging things has been the thought of leaving this experience not knowing if I'll ever get to come back, and it feels like time is just kind of flying by. And while I do certainly miss my husband and my daughters back home and all my friends and family, overall it's just such a unique opportunity that I'm just trying to soak it all in.
And for either of you, there appear to be a lot of physical changes that happen to the body during a long duration mission in space, like immune system changes and vision changes. And I've read about like risks associated with like increased radiation exposure. So what's the biggest lesson that researchers are hoping to learn from you and your mission in space that could eventually be applied to keeping astronauts safe and healthy on even longer missions, like eventually, hopefully, a 3-year mission to Mars?
Yeah, Rebecca, I think we're constantly learning more and more about the impacts of spaceflight on the human body. You know, it's one of those things where you have such a small number in the grand scheme of things of people that have flown in space that it's often hard to pinpoint something as, is this a causal factor or not? But we have certainly seen that we've been able to provide countermeasures through exercise to maintain our bone density, but the bone structure seems to change a bit. We've definitely been interested in studying the impacts to our eyes that we see on orbit, and understanding better. I don't think we quite do yet when we start talking about longer missions, what that impact will be to our eyes. The fluid shifts. You know, coming up here, as Andy mentioned, feeling that stuffiness. I've been lucky to not have it, but and then one thing a lot of kids ask me is, "Oh, are you going to be younger than all of us when you come back flying in space?" But I think actually we find it might actually age us a bit more up here. So I think we're really still gaining an understanding of all those things.
And how do you all keep physically fit in space? You had mentioned that you guys work out like about 2 hours a day. What does that look like, and what does the reconditioning look like when you guys will be returning to Earth?
Well, so as you mentioned, we exercise 2.5 hours a day. We have a stationary bicycle, we have a treadmill, and then we have a strength conditioning device, basically a machine where we can do all sorts of muscle exercises like squats, deadlifts, bench press, curls, anything like that. And so we do a mix between cardio and muscle strength building exercises in order to maintain our muscle mass and our bone density, because being weightless, we simply don't need our muscles or our bones. And so our body is smart and says, well, there's no need to spend energy maintaining it if we don't need it. So that's why we have to exercise. And hopefully it also means that when we return to Earth, our rehabilitation will be minimal. And most astronauts do return to Earth and need minimal rehabilitation. We are able to minimize the loss of muscle mass and bone density by our exercise regimen up here.
Great. Thank you so much, both, for taking the time. I appreciate it, and wishing you both luck and a safe mission.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all the participants from Fox News Digital and Yahoo News. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.